So, as you know, if you clicked on this, Fiona and Cake Season 2 is about to come out on October 23rd. Before it does, please let me tell you about the Season 2 concept I wrote right after Season 1 ended and immediately forgot about. And no, please don't click away. Here, look, I even storyboarded the cold open. So without further ado, here is Fiona and Cake, Last Martyrs of Golb. Hi, I'm Corbin, and as you can tell, I'm a big Adventure Time and Fiona and Cake fan. Season 1 left a lot of plot points open for future stories, and I love that, so here is a little bit of what I would do with them. As you can tell from the cold open, Fiona is not over the events of Season 1. She has a lot of regrets about what she could have done better and all of the people she failed to save, even if, just like Finn in Adventure Time, it wasn't actually her fault. After that dream, in episode 1 of my season 2, she calls Simon, who is at some sort of event with Finn. It's sort of paralleling Simon's episode 2 of season 1 phone call to Marceline. But unlike Simon's phone call, when Simon is the one being called, he has learned from that and he goes outside to talk to her. And it's Simon. You wouldn't believe what Finn and I are doing right now. He took me on a quest for an artifact from the 1980s. Fiona, I had that dream again. Simon, what was that? Fiona, never mind, I'll call you later. Simon, no, I'll step out. And Simon steps out of the cave where Finn's fighting some sort of creature. Simon, what were you saying? Fiona, I had this dream. Simon, Fiona, it's nearly 3 p.m. A good sleep schedule is very important for young people like you know. You have to make sure you're getting enough rest to... I'm 29! But that's not important. Simon, I had a dream about your wife. Simon's face drops, and he's silent for a long moment. About Betty? Well, we were never married, and I'm not sure she's even my fiancé anymore. I think that she might have broken up with me. Fiona, well, she was big and red and showing me all kinds of crazy stuff. Like the dream I had when we first came back and everyone was magic, but all wrong. All the times we turned stuff unmagic, but like even more and even worse. I'm kind of freaking out, man. Simon, well, don't freak out. I'll see if I can figure anything out on my end, and you just have a normal day, okay? Remember, you can always call me if you need me. Fiona, I know, you big dork. But thanks, Simon. I'll talk to you soon, okay? Simon says, okay, and smiles. She goes about her day, and at the end of the day, Simon contacts her again. He lets her know that he's trying to make a device to go between worlds, and they can test it tomorrow. Fiona goes to sleep, and she meets Betty in an almost human form, but Betty keeps glitching in the electric way, like when Simon was in the gold dimension. Betty explains that she's trying to keep Golb contained, but that it's hard. Think like Steven Universe Lapis when she was fused with Jasper, just trying to keep her restrained. And Golb has started sending random spouts of chaos into various dimensions. She asks Fiona if she'll help contain it, and Fiona agrees. And Betty gives Fiona a sliver of Golb's power. It hurts, and Fiona doesn't yet realize that that's what just happened. As the dream ends, Betty asks Fiona to keep Simon safe and not let him know about any of this. In episode 2, Fiona and Simon try the device, but it doesn't work. However, while trying, Fiona accidentally uses Golb powers to open a portal beneath herself, and she falls into Ooh. She actually blinks through the Golb dimension to do this, and when she does, Golbetty turns to look at her for just a second, but we don't have a time to unpack all that, because she falls into Ooh and meets the Ooh crew. That's all. I've heard so much about you. We have too. Heh, you both hit on me in other dimensions. She was scarier about it, though. That's Fiona, of course, talking to Marceline and Bonnibel. And after this, I don't have it divided into episodes as well, but I'll tell you some key events, character arcs, things like that. Betty tells Fiona that the Winter King's world has something that's gone wrong, something that Golb has glitched out. And Betty gave her these powers so she can fix things like this. Fiona returns to find that Queen Bubblegum, without any support, has become a complete mad scientist. She's acting like Candy Queen, but she's not even cursed. Queen Bubblegum sees Fiona, and through some multiversal instinct, she recognizes that she, as Bubblegum, needs a knight, and she latches onto the fact that Fiona should be that knight, because Finn is usually Princess Bubblegum's knight. Fiona tries to find whatever Golb has altered in this world. It tries very hard to ignore the fact that Queen Bubblegum is definitely not going to let her leave afterwards. Not sure how that ends, but I do think it's a fun concept. But one of the most pivotal early season events is when we, as the audience, return to the vampire world of the Star. It turns out that Marceline was poofed at the end of the episode, but Bonnie survived in a candy goop form, and while she was weak, the Vampire King collected her along with Marcy's ashes. He's trying to summon Golb to trade Bonnie's life in order to bring back Marceline. Golb is a monkey's paw type deal, though, and the Vampire King does sort of get his wish, in the form of Golb fusing both Marceline and Bubblegum into one being that has extremely conflicting feelings about this. When Vampire King rages against Golb for doing this to his child, Golb possesses him, sort of paralleling Betty giving her power to Fiona, except with Golb and the Vampire King, Golb completely strips him of his consciousness and just creates a vessel of Golb's power to fight against Fiona. Marceline and Bonnie's fusion, who I call Marnie, hates herself, and she hates the fact that this has happened to her, and she hates what her father/worst enemy has become. She flees, leaving the Vampire King and going out on her own. Fiona gets to their world, and Marnie is the first person she runs into. They fight, but when they see the Vampire King again, they end up forming an uneasy alliance, because even when Marnie hates herself and hates Fiona, she can tell that this is not right, and they have to stop this. I will give you an author's note. This is Yuri. While they can't stop the Vampire King right now, Marnie ends up coming back with Fiona to the human world, and they are roommates. So I know this is a controversial take, and I totally respect that a lot of people did like this choice, but one thing I didn't completely agree with in season 1 was the idea that Betty, who is this fierce, crazy woman, became very muted and mature while fused with Golb, who is the god of chaos. Instead, I want to lean into the energy that the reason she appeared that way is because she's expending so much mental energy trying to keep Golb contained. So it's more that and less she became emotionally mature just to teach Simon a lesson. Hashtag let Betty be crazy. But in the penultimate episode, we see Golbetty in the Chaos Dimension fighting against itself, and they each have their chosen pawns, Fiona and the Vampire King, who are fighting in the real world, where the Vampire King has come into Ooh. There is a final clash between the two of them. Fiona gets a very cool Golb-inspired magical girl transformation. Shocking everyone, Marnie delivers the final blow against the Vampire King. Even though she still struggles, living with Fiona has convinced her that chaos shouldn't reign, and maybe there are at least a few good things in this world worth protecting. She's decided that Fiona is one of them. I also haven't addressed Cake yet in this video, but trust that I did not forget about her. She's in kind of a weird situation at the end of season 1, being a magical creature in a mostly unmagical world. Even her boyfriend from the before world is a human now, and that's just so weird for her. So while a lot of this is going on, she has a subplot where she's kind of trying to make her and Fiona's world more accepting of magic. It is very difficult, but eventually she convinces one person to truly accept it, and when they do, they turn into a candy person. She doesn't know that this is a side effect of Golb's influence, so she's just excited and goes on a little bit of a rampage trying to do this to as many people as possible. She still accompanies Fiona during the quests, but while Fiona is trying to figure out the whole Martyrs of Golb mystery, Cake is wreaking havoc in the background. So, not a lot of people know about the comics, but the comic Adventure Time Simon and Marcy, which was the debatably canon ending until Fiona and Cake came out, is awesome. It's very cute. And in it, Simon finds his way back to Golbetty's dimension. And Betty says, "I failed you, Simon. This was my decision. I should have known you'd come looking for me." In the comics, Marceline's father ends up defeating Golb, breaking Betty out, and they all live happily ever after, for now at least. You and I will always be back then. But I have pulled from a lot of that for the vibe that I'm trying to curate here. It's like that, but a little bit darker, a little bit scarier, sort of matching the tone of Fiona and Cake season 1 more, because Simon and Marcy had like the happily ever after. This is the almost happily ever after, but a little bit scary. On that note, let's see what Simon has been up to. While Fiona has been using her sliver of power to try and fix the chaos that Golb is making, Simon is secretly studying it. She brushes him off over and over, trying not to reveal that Betty has been talking to her, sending her on missions, giving her powers. But Simon knows something's not right, and he's decided he's finally going to do something about it. When Fiona gets to the fight, he's got a plan of his own. He breaks into Golbetty's dimension one last time, and Betty is mad. She's done so much to protect him, and here he is again. But he's going to tear Betty out of God and eat God down to the bone. If you've seen Madoka Magica Rebellion, you know the exact vibe. If not, spoiler warning incoming. Skip ahead maybe like a minute. But the final episode is a lot like the ending scene of Rebellion. A strangely idyllic world, a slice of life story where everyone is fun and happy and free. Everyone except Simon, who watches Fiona and Betty go on adventures together. As Fiona passes by, she turns and looks at him and says, "Have we met before?" He waves his hand, the camera cuts away, and she blinks. Betty calls back, "Come on, who are you talking to?" And Fiona looks around, confused. There's no one there. She says, "I don't know. Myself, I guess." And that's where we leave them. Simon unhinged and tired and barely holding on to the power himself. But he's satisfied because it's finally his turn to make a sacrifice for Betty to be happy, instead of the other way around. So, what did you think? If you totally hated it, please say that in a nice way because I'm sensitive, but I do think there's at least a few fun ideas in here. And I'm very excited for the real season 2. And I'm mostly posting this because if anything from here does end up happening in the real series, I will be very proud that I guessed it, and I'll have proof. Thank you so much for watching.